Now, torrential rain has caused flash flooding in East Yorkshire this afternoon. The bad weather arrived at lunchtime, with the roof of this petrol station in Hull being blown off in the high winds. There it is. Then came the thunderstorms. The fire service dealt with 40 call-outs and 4 homes in Cottingham were flooded. Well, our environment correspondent Paul Murphy is in Cottingham at the moment. How bad's it been, Paul?
Evening, Peter. Well, big community clean-up operation underway in this corner of Cottingham at the moment. This is one of 4 houses in this part of the village which have been affected. Lots of downpours all over Cottingham. I think people were really surprised with the speed at which this flood took hold. This was under a foot of water about an hour ago. It's also gone away just as quickly. Badger's Wood in Cottingham is no stranger to flooding. It was devastated by what happened 7 years ago. Residents were told that that was a 1 in 200 year event, a prediction that was proved wrong this afternoon.
I got the air brick covers, but by the time I'd got Wellingtons and things on, the water had covered over my air bricks and I was looking for them underwater. There were large hailstones and the water just came up to the top of my step. So I think that we're probably flooded again for the second time in 7 years.
Within half an hour of the downpour, water was running through the doors of at least 4 homes in this neighbourhood.
In a matter of minutes and it was swamped. When we got here, we've managed to keep it in check to stop any other houses getting flooded. But I believe up to now there's been 4 or 5 that are flooded.
Elsewhere in Cottingham, a town centre cafe owner recorded the moment his business was damaged. The local school was also flooded, as were parts of Hull University's halls of residence, where some students couldn't get out.
And the water begins to raise, and we get trapped.
How long have you been trapped?
5 hours.
5 hours trapped in your room?
Yes.
This was a small-scale event, devastating for a few, of course, and a close call for many others. And yet another reminder of how vulnerable our communities are becoming to heavy rainfall. Spare a thought for this family, going to spend tonight clearing out their garage and trying to recover what they can from it. That was under quite a bit of water earlier on today. And just a footnote, Peter, from Cottingham High School, which has contacted us to say that so severe has the flood damage been there that they are shut completely to all pupils tomorrow. Back to you.
Well, thank you for the latest, and of course the other Paul will have a full forecast in just a few minutes' time. Now, the government has been warned that lives could be lost in the next big flood to hit East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire unless it takes action. Humber MPs met the Prime Minister at Downing Street today. David Cameron was told that even though he committed money to flood defences yesterday, £900 million more is needed to protect homes and businesses from another tidal surge. Our political editor, Tim Iredale, reports from Westminster.
It's the £880 million question. Is the government willing to spend this amount of money over the next 10 years to protect East Yorkshire and northern Lincolnshire from flooding? Dave Mounsey is still picking up the pieces at his home in the flood-hit village of South Ferriby following December's tidal surge. He fears it could happen again sooner than many expect.
Now, they quote this 1 in 200 year event. Well, it came over top of that bank in 1954. We're 2014, well, it isn't 200 years since it flooded, so come on, let's do something. And I don't think it would take a lot.
Today, Humber MPs met the Prime Minister at Downing Street to set out their case for more flood protection.
We were lucky that, it wasn't more catastrophic than we have. It's very sad for the people who were involved, but nobody died this time. The risk of something bigger is that would happen, and it would be the damage to the economy and to people's homes and to life could be very substantial. And although there's hundreds of millions going into our flood defences, the issue we have now is that it needs to be a lot more.
The government says it's spending a record amount on flood defences, but the Prime Minister admits there is an argument for better flood protection for the Humber region.
Oh, it's very important. It's important for homeowners, for householders, it's important for business. It's also important to check all the critical national infrastructure, and we've been doing that, looking at the position of all the docks, including Immingham, looking at the facilities there, and making sure that we can make sure our infrastructure is resilient from these sorts of tidal surges and floods. So very important to secure the investment.
The government has this week committed an extra £48 million towards flood defences on the Humber, but some MPs believe almost double that amount should be spent on an annual basis if householders and businesses are to be fully protected from a flood event most of us hope we'll never see in our lifetime.
Well, Tim gets to all the best places. Have a look at this. He's in Downing Street. I mean, is the government likely to commit this extra money for the flood defences?
Well, Peter, I'd love to stand here tonight and say the Prime Minister has persuaded his neighbour, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, to write a cheque for £880 million for those extra flood defences on the Humber. But the reality is government doesn't work like that. We are told the 10-year flood protection plan favoured by the 4 Humber local authorities and the local enterprise partnership will be looked at closely by various departments, and if it is proved to be value for money, then it will be given the go-ahead. In the meantime, of course, we hope we don't have another one of those 1 in 200-year flood catastrophes. Otherwise, we won't be talking about whether we can afford to spend that money, but why we can't afford not to spend that money.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. Of course, one of our main stories, which we have done for many years and will continue to follow indeed.